All right, let me get to some comic book news, somewhat. And I can only touch on a few comics that I read. Basically, your best bet is Conan the Barbarian, whether now or in the past, even more so. I've been reading a lot of Savage, Sword of Conan, a bunch of old stories there. And then one I'd never collected, I came across of it, was called Conan Saga that Marvel put out. And it's great. It's got this cool, yet another nasty sorcerer is confounding Conan, even in his later years as king. And it's interesting because the guy's been dead for millennia, but some other lesser known sorcerer resurrects him. So it's all really nasty, dark, evil, magic and whatnot. And as it plays out, and I'm missing one of the issues. So, I'll do a full-on follow-up of the story when I get that. But, of course, it's great stuff. As for new comics, I do have a stack of those. When I'll get to it, I don't know. Things have been very busy, and I've got a trip to Vegas coming up, and so a lot of that stuff going on, plus taxes and all that. But I did read the latest Justice League, so I'll just do a brief take on that at the end. But in the meantime, oh look, this little article reveals the first look at Penguin and Two-Face. Now, pretty much already saw it after what Bane did to them. He really brutally destroyed them, literally, especially poor Penguin. So it's Oswald Cobblepot. And in the absolute world, Harvey Dent, who, was a friend of Bruce Wayne in the normal DC universe, but, and so is the case here, but they grew up together. All these were sort of the gang that Bruce Wayne hung out with. So you have Oswald Cobblepot was another friend, and a couple of other characters, there. And then of course, Selena Kyle was his girlfriend. So they grew up together on the streets of Gotham. And then now, because of his life as Batman, Bane took out his vengeance, or maybe not so much vengeance, but part of his breaking of Batman was he brutally destroyed his friends, and even in the case of Killer Croc, turning him into a monster and stuff like that. And so this will be the results. Of course, Harvey becomes Two-Face. He's badly beaten and all that, but his face was destroyed. But he covers it up with his long white hair. He still has the duality deal going on, of course, and he's got his black and white suit representing that and so on. Meanwhile, Penguin, well, he was so badly beaten, and he's actually made him a shorter man than he was because just every bone in his body was destroyed. His face was destroyed. So he's this lumbering thing. And that's the setup. They've decided there's no hope in the world, and they're going to become the criminals, in opposition to Batman. Look, it's over the top insanity of absolute Batman. And for the most part, if it can maintain some sort of weird entertainment, it more or less works. And it's the top seller of the absolute line, even though it's not the best. Narratively speaking, as far as I'm concerned, that's Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman's the best. And Superman took a while, but it kind of got there on its own. It's got some good elements to it. It's still not really Superman. And for that matter, Wonder Woman's the only one who's close to actually being Wonder Woman, and recognizably so, personality-wise. Whereas Superman and Batman, not so much. Not really. And it's a hard case to make that Batman is actually the hero in this story. Certainly the villains aren't. They're villains. And these people are broken, innocent people now destroyed and turned into monsters. But, it's still a choice on their part. But, it's not exactly as... It's a bit ridiculous that it happens this way. Bane's the problem, but... you can argue that Bruce Wayne was in over his head, and he was, and they suffered for it. But yeah, you have to assume they were all snapped and, gone crazy and all that. With Two-Face, he always had mental issues and whatnot. Penguin, he worked better as just a mobster And that's the best realization of him. I mean, before he was the funny guy with the exploding penguins and the umbrella guns and all that. But as just this mobster guy and with the nickname Penguin, it really works. It really fits well. Here, this isn't all that interesting. It's just that he's just, hey, we need him to become Penguin. How? Well, he's just beaten into it. So, yeah. So the look here, well, yeah, for the most part, and he's got to have this armor and stuff because his body's so badly mangled. And, of course, he must be constantly living in absolute agony and pain, making him all the more bitter and angry and just lashes out at everybody. But here, for crutches, well, he uses these machine guns. Yeah. If too much stuff gets packed into the barrel, when he fires it, it's going to explode in his face. I wouldn't think he would want any more, injury, from that. So, see, hey, I think it looks pretty clever that he has a dual use for his weapons, his crutches, and his, yeah, not really. But he just, hey, it looks cool. And that's about it. And a lot of that goes, for Absolute Batman is the creepy and weird, visuals and the overall insanity of it. I quit reading it because of that nastiness of really, I don't know how else to put it. Obviously my politics will be at odds with a lot of these creators of comics and whatnot. But when it goes into your fantasies about death of people you don't like, it's a hard time to separate the art from the artist. So, checked out of Batman. But anyway, that's the ultimate look of them, or Absolute rather. And, eventually you get to a certain point. It's like, well, what is the point of this? Well, it's this alternate line. DC has a history of that. They used to do that with their original version. That was Earth 2, and Earth 1 was the main Earth and that kind of thing. But ultimately the only difference was, the Earth 2 guys were older and they'd been in World War II and stuff like that. Now you get to this universe that Darkseid created, which I don't know. I mean, Scott Snyder's the one who introduced the Dark Universe or Dark Multiverse. So just use that, but, whatever. A lot of it is just going back to the same trough over and over again. But as long as people have enough entertainment out of it, it really doesn't matter. But how long can that run? I don't know. I guess you'll find out. But, yeah, I don't know that I can ever dip back in after that nastiness. So, but anyway, there you go. That's Two-Face and Penguin. Now, Penguin, you can see, he's got his black and white suit. The black and white suit, put together the way Two-Face has it, makes sense. But then he's got all that hair covering the altered face. So, he's, long hair. Yeah, that wouldn't work either. I don't know how that, it's not that great of a look. I guess eventually maybe he'll get a haircut. And then you can see, hey, look, he's Two-Face. Now, here's something I seriously doubt would happen. There's all kinds of problems Brian Michael Bendis created here, and then others took it to another level anyway, let me get through it. So, DC Comics has a chance to undo something that has been a thorn in the side of Superman fans everywhere for nearly a decade. I am, of course, speaking about the decision to age up John Kent. Yeah, that's part of it. It's a big part of it. People didn't like that. It was stupid. And all that crap about Jor-El coming back and everything. Brian Michael Bendis didn't come up with that idea, but it was a bad idea. It should have been retconned out and all that sort of stuff. But nevertheless, did that so that they could get John Kent to an age where he could date. And initially, he goes off with the Legion of Superheroes and has a relationship with Saturn Girl. And then they suddenly, oh, wait, we could exploit this for LGBT, so we can't have him with a girl. So then they introduced a boyfriend, and there you went with that. And then once you do that, well, if you retcon it and undo it, then you're anti. See how that happens? And you're like, well, yeah. The only thing about Jonathan Kent with the other people that were, I don't know how else you put it, I guess orientation swapped, most notably Tim Drake, which is ridiculous. Marvel did it with Bobby Drake. Drake's. I wonder if there's something to it. No, there's for Iceman, who was even older than Tim Drake's Robin. But nevertheless, both had been long established. And then just all of a sudden, I'm starting to think like this. I mean, at least in Iceman's case, boy, you can blame it on Jean Grey and that she brainwashed him into being gay for whatever reason. You got to have a reason why she would do that. But for Tim Drake, it just happens. He meets up with some old school pal and they decide they just can't get enough of each other and all that. But it's like, it doesn't make any sense. It's decades. If there'd been some, universe reset crisis again, a retcon and everything's a little different, but kind of the same and that sort of stuff. And then this version, the other one was, of course, Alan Scott. And that's even more ridiculous than both Iceman and Robin because he's older than all of them, and fathered 2 children. His son was gay, but wasn't good enough. He doesn't have a famous enough brand name. So all of a sudden, Alan Scott's gay. That kind of crap. With Jonathan Kent, or John Kent, rather, he's, and certainly at the time they decided, hey, let's do this so we can have enough gay characters to say, see, and get clicks and articles online for the virtue points, I guess. But anyway, and also for the headline to say Superman gay, and average person doesn't understand that's not Clark Kent and all that. But anyway, the thing about him is you could argue that, okay, maybe it is possible that he's this way. He has these feelings or what have you. And they were saying, well, he's bisexual. They have to hurry up and explain because they already established that he had the hots for Saturn Girl, So, bisexual, but really, once they establish as gay, then, well, that's that. And he's with the boyfriend and all that. Once they did that, you can't really, you can't go back, or something like that, unless, but he's still relatively a new character. The creepiness of it was that he was a very young boy and you aged him up for romantic relationships, to put it mildly. That's why you did it. And you broke up really, but John and Damian back with the Super Sons, which had a popular run for, a minute, but still. Just all that stuff. It was just really just slapped on out there. Hurry up and do this without really much thought to it. And, it's a problem. Now, do you have a means by which perhaps you could change this? Now here, hey, how'd this happen? Well, he got lost and ended up in the Earth 3 universe and got imprisoned inside a volcano by Ultraman and was tortured by him. And Ultraman, of course, is the evil version of his own father. So a man who looks just like his father was torturing him, Boy, oh boy, I don't think they were thinking that through as to the trauma that might result for certain things for John. Yeah. Do you really want to put that there? But they did it. Now he comes back and he's kind of like, hey, it's me, Mom and Dad and all that, but you're so much older. Yeah, well, time displacement and whatnot. All that sort of stuff. And then, he gets a boyfriend and, hey, it's fine. It's great. What do you mean? It's great. With all this, nobody really thought this through. It's a bit of a rush job on quite a few things, going forward with that. But you could go and say the real John Kent is still lost out there. And then he shows up, and he's still very young. He's still like 10 years old or what have you. And they're like, huh, what? So then who's this other guy? Well, he's an alternate universe, and maybe he's the actual son of Ultraman, And it was so bad that he began to believe he was, John, and he has a much happier life living with Superman and Lois, But he's got to overcome this when he realizes the real John, and they still keep him in the family, They're not going to turn their backs on him, and it wasn't really his fault. And he kind of becomes this older brother to the real John, and you leave it at that, So now, apparently, they're going to give him the name Tomorrow Man, so at least he'll have his own superhero name. And since he's a big fan of Nightwing, I guess he wanted to put the bird symbol on his chest instead of an S, or a T rather, But anyway, there you go. But now, oh no, he meets his past self. So it's time travel shenanigans with an imp from the fourth dimension instead of, Mixes-Piddalick. I'll always call it Mixoplick, though. And that sort of thing. And hey, boy, we could fix this. Well, the time travel, I wouldn't think you would need. See, my idea is better. But then they would say it. Oh, they're different and not the same and all this. I really seriously doubt that they would do away with adult John Kent after all this hoopla and stuff. For whatever reason, they fear online backlash for social and political movements and whatnot, rather than narrative. And you were better off leaving him where he was. I suppose you could have done one of those stories, because they did this with Connor Kent and stuff. So it's in the distant future, and you meet adult versions, and then you find out, hey, Jonathan grows up to be, gay, and that sort of thing. Well, while he's this young child, you just don't mess with stuff like that. You just don't. But they won't do it. So, oh boy, they're really going to retcon the whole story where he got tortured in the volcano, which then they just sort of moved on from. I mean, what damage it would have done to him, and he doesn't acknowledge it. At least the titles I read, doesn't really. He seems fine, So I doubt it. I doubt it. It was all a terrible mistake, and you really shouldn't have done that. But they don't think that through because they're too busy chasing that opportunity for that oh so virtuous signal. Look at me. Look at what I did. And it doesn't really work. New character, well, guess you can knock yourselves out. And to some extent, but how they got there. Oof. So, anyways, hey, you think, look, even they does the article here at comicbook.com, and man, a lot of people didn't like this. It doesn't really touch on the sexuality, of course, but nevertheless, yeah. Brian Michael Bendis is just terrible to Superman, and Superman was doing a good run, and he just, I don't know, he just came in and bulldozed a few things over, set up a character to have a show on CW, and that collapsed almost instantly. Well, no, instantly it did. And and then he moved on, and he did a lot of damage, and that's his best years of writing appear to be long behind him, because he did do some good stuff, but not for DC. Well, of course, he's always wanted to be in television and movies, so he's chasing that again with his own property. So that's an entirely different thing. So whatever he wants to do. There was a live action series for Powers. I never watched it. I think it was streamed on PlayStation. It was just one of those things they were trying out. But it came and went, Well, now, let's do an animated series, which, makes sense. So he'll probably at least get 2 seasons, as is the standard at Netflix. And if it really catches on, you'll get more. So there you go. He's going to do his Powers story there. And I'm wondering, they could, because Michael Oeming, I believe was his name, was the main artist for Powers, and his art style would translate very well for 2D animation, and so they could do it like that. So anyway, it's in the works at Netflix. The adult-oriented series has Dark Horse Entertainment's Keith Goldberg and Chris Tung on board as executive producers, with Bendis writing the pilot and Oeming participating in the visual development. So there you go. The animation should resemble the comic book. So combining the tropes of the superhero genre with the police procedural genre, Powers follows two Chicago homicide detectives, Kristen Walker and Dina Pilgrim, who work in cases involving superpowers. So there you go. This won't be the first time Powers has been adapted to the screen. Back in the mid-2010s, a live-action series starring Charlton Copley and Susan Hayward as Walker and Pilgrim launched on the PlayStation Network. Though fans of the comic responded well enough, the show received mixed reviews and was canceled after 2 seasons. Well, there you go. See, maybe they'll put that on Netflix, you know. So anyway, it's a homicide detective show set in a world where there are superheroes. That's basically it. Now, there's superhero soap opera stuff involving the detectives themselves, but in case you haven't read the comics, I won't spoil that. So they'll probably do that. And if they did a full-on adaptation, because right off the bat, they're in a murder mystery, so it should work. And now animated, probably even better. So with Bendis involved, we assume this animated adaptation will stick pretty closely to the original premise. I would think so. Powers initially launched independently before being published by Image Comics in the early 2000s. The comic won an Eisner Award back when that still mattered, with Bendis winning Best Writer in 2002 and 2003. That's a long time ago. So the series later moved to Icon, a short-lived Marvel imprint that put out creator-owned books, and is now in the middle of a new Dark Horse limited series tied to its 25th anniversary. Powers 25, a new 12-issue limited series debuted last September. Oh. Well, I guess I'll wait for the trade. It might be okay. It's his own thing, so, you know, it's not like, well, I guess he could mess up his own characters and all that, but at least he's not ruining Superman again. This new tale is fun, dangerous, adult look at a world of heroes through the eyes of Special Homicide Officer Detective Cutter and her brand new partner, and the first power to ever make the Powers division. So it's like the new X-Files show. They got two new detectives, you know. Mobius Moon, under the watchful eyes of legendary captains Dina Pilgrim and Aniki Sunriser, the new detectives run through a minefield of all new dangers. A new unsolvable Powers murder has Cutter and Moon questioning everything about the world and their place in it. Well, there you go. So, I would be interested in it being more about the original comic than this new one. But, you know, provided it lasts, they'll probably get there, you know. So, there you go. That's probably a better place for Brian Michael Bendis these days than, you know, classic franchise brands, the likes of Superman, because boy, did he really poop the bed on that. The last thing he did at Marvel that I always say is that was pretty cool was Dark Avengers. That was a good run, and but of course it had to end. And after that, I don't know, he just lost his mojo. And of course, really wanted to be in TV and movies. He's been chasing it all along, and he's got another shot at bat with the Powers cartoon at Netflix. Finally, Sam Keith passed away, and he's the creator of the Max, which briefly had a MTV cartoon, but he he wasn't a part of the Image outburst of as far as the founder or anything, but he did early on have his series there, and it was strange and weird and everything, but it was fitting because he had been a Sandman artist, and wow, it was weird. But a lot of it, his kind of surrealism and wild take on things might have been a better take with Absolute Batman than what you're getting. But anyway, Sam Keith, the comic book creator and artist best known for the Max and for helping launch Neil Gaiman's The Sandman, has died at 63. Multiple reports say Keith died on March 15th, 2026, following complications related to Lewy body dementia. Now, that's symptoms that are similar to Parkinson's disease. Now, Parkinson's, about with the tremors and whatnot. But another element of it, and sometimes might be the only symptoms, is, dementia. They suffer hallucinations and stuff because it's a neurological disorder and it's attacking the brain. And so that kind of thing, it's a terrible, terrible disease. And it's really sad that he had to suffer that, and to come on at, he was only 63, he should have had, more years. But unfortunately, he had to suffer this terrible ailment. But he's not suffering anymore. And so condolences to his family and loved ones, But he did have quite an impact on the industry, and so he had most distinct styles in comics. You recognized his work immediately. Fans knew him instantly from the exaggerated anatomy, wild energy, and surreal look that made his pages stand out from nearly everyone else in the industry. That's true. So the Max, the Image comic series he created in 1993. Maybe he did have a stake in Image. I just don't remember him. But they, because that's when Image happened. They started publishing all their stories, McFarlane and Rob Liefeld, Larson, and all those guys. And then there was the Max. But I guess it was more of an opportunity because it's not the type of title it probably would have gotten. It might have made Max was weird enough to be a Vertigo series, so I suppose he could have published it there. But I put it out through Image. So DC also notes he helped break through by co-creating and illustrating The Sandman for DC before going on to work at Marvel and create the Max. So, with his surreal style and approach, he was perfect for basically the dreamscape stories of Sandman. So while Image became known for its superstar founders and superhero books, the Max carved out its own lane. The title mixed superhero ideas with dreamlike horror, trauma, fantasy, and dark humor. It ran for 35 issues and became one of the more memorable creator-driven books of the 1990s. Beyond the Max, Keith also worked again on Sandman, Wolverine stories, and covers for Marvel Comics Presents, Batman Secrets, Batman Lobo Deadly Series, Lobo Highway to Hell, Zero Girl, Arkham Asylum Madness, and more. He received an Inkpot Award from Comic-Con International in 2013. News of Keith's death spread through comic circles, which tributes focuses on how different his work looked from everything around him and how much influence he had on artists who came after him. He's survived by his wife, Kathy. So there's Rob Liefeld doing a tribute, and this is his take on. You see what I mean? If he had, been able to do a Absolute Batman, he would fit right in, But there's the Max, and even like the panel and stuff. It all owes to this. A lot of comics are depicting dreams and whatnot, and the panels working that way. In some cases, Ditko would do that in Doctor Strange, and it just fit that way. But it was just what a weird character, So anyway, there you go. Rest in peace, Sam Keith. And, well, he had a good run. He was an artist of his own distinctive style. So, other than the Conan old back issues of Savage Sword and Conan Saga, I did find time to read Justice League Unlimited 17, and it's basically, it's just sort of an epilogue or a wrap-up or aftermath story of the DCKO, just to inform you that that was only the prequel. They literally say that in the story. And so the next event is coming when Darkseid gets really nasty. And so to shore up their membership, they're offering amnesty to supervillains. Yeah, and you can see them there. So Lobo, well, off and on, they've worked with him. So they have Lobo on the team. Lex Luthor's been in the Justice League before. I guess, I don't know if that counts anymore, but they're doing it again. And with his genius and technology, hey, kind of makes sense. Looks like Cheetah. I don't recall her being in the comic, but I guess, yeah, they did offer her the membership. She's in there, and of course, she's on par with Wonder Woman. So you can understand her being there. And of course, Killer Shark, or King Shark, rather. He's muscle. And then Starro, the Conqueror. Or maybe that's the little baby Starro they had. And he's growing up. Okay. And then, for whatever reason, Harley Quinn. Hey, she's nuts. And she has a baseball bat. That's really going to teach Darkseid a lesson. So it's not that good. It's pretty stupid. The art's good. There is that. But the main thing is Superman disappeared, so they don't know where he is and all that, and everybody's kind of sad about it. But the world's still in trouble, and then, oh no, look who comes to save the day. Well, again, Lex Luthor, he's in his Iron Man suit, so you can understand him being recruited. And there's Giganta. Well, yeah, you could put her on the team. She becomes a giant. And then, Starro, is he going to sit on the terrorist's face and take over his mind? I don't know. So there you go, Justice League. There's their satellite now, and Blue Beetle and Red Tornado. He's finally got his body back, and they're chilling, hanging out. And then suddenly they notice on the news that the Earth is healing and all the apocalypse stuff is vanishing, because just like that, like magic. At least Superman was able to do that with the Omega power before he gave it up. Had he given it up before then, they'd just have to deal with a really nasty, stinky planet. But anyway, is it worth the trouble? No. It wasn't very good, but it's setting it up that, it's just going to work out fine with these Legion of Doom guys on the team. But the main reasoning behind it, even though Batman is like, I don't know, but, well, I'm going to allow this, Of course, there'll be trouble. But which one? Which one will be the first? Well, Luthor's got to have a nasty plot and will stab them in the back, especially after he stabbed Superman in the back in the tournament and stuff. But no, let's give him a chance. And, of course, the idea is that the threat is so terrible because after all that trouble, it still isn't solved. They only delayed the threat. So it was all for nothing. But this next event, whatever they're going to call it, another crisis, this will be the one that really, rights the ship or something. And then after that, hey, no events for at least 10 years, huh? No, I'm afraid not. So, yeah, you can pass on this, unless you're just a hardcore completist and you got to see it. But other than that, yeah, never mind. So anyway, I guess that's it. So I don't know if I'll get a chance to do another one next week because I got a lot of stuff going on. So this might be it for a while, and we'll see how that goes. But anyway, there you go. That's my comic book show. A day late. but not necessarily $1 short.